There's a hole in the bucket, dear Effie, dear Effie. Hole in the bucket, dear Effie. There's a hole in the bucket.
Well, fix it, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. Fix it, dear Silas, dear Silas, plug it up.
What with, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with?
With a straw, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. With a straw, dear Silas, dear Silas, with a straw.
But it's too long, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie. Too long, dear Effie, dear Effie, it's too long.
Well, cut it, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. Cut it, dear Silas, dear Silas, wipe it off.
Ooh. What with, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with?
Use the axe, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. Use the axe, dear Silas, dear Silas. Use the axe.
But it's too dull, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie. It's too dull, dear Effie, dear Effie. It's too dull.
Oh, well, sharpen it, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. Sharpen it, dear Silas, dear Silas. Grind it.
Oh, what with, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with?
With a stone, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. With a stone, dear Silas, dear Silas. With a stone.
But it's too hard, dry, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie. It's too dry, dear Effie, dear Effie. It's too dry.
Oh, well, wet it, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. Wet it, dear Silas, dear Silas. Wet it.
What with, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with, dear Effie, dear Effie? What with?
A little water, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. A little water, dear Silas, dear Silas. A little water.
But where'll I get it, dear Effie, dear Effie, dear Effie? Where'll I get it, dear Effie, dear Effie? Where'll I get it?
From the bucket, dear Silas, dear Silas, dear Silas. From the bucket, dear Silas, dear Silas. From the bucket.
But there's a hole in the bucket, dear Effie, dear Effie. There's a hole in your bucket, dear Effie. There's a hole in the bucket.
We'll fix it.
Well, all right.